In November of 2023, the Swell Pod took a 10-day journey across 5 states, traveling 3,580 miles with one challenge in mind.
And that challenge was to interview 100 pleasantly rebellious humans to uncover deep truths about what it takes to create something that has never existed before, challenge the status quo, maybe even change the world.
This is the Kiln Road Trip, created and produced by the Swell Pod.
In partnership with Kiln, Moterra Camper Vans, and sponsored by Taurus.
I'm Spencer McKeown.
And I'm Josh Taylor, and together we're the co-hosts of the Swell Pod and your guides on the Kiln Road Trip. Follow along on the journey.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Swell Pod on social media, and subscribe to your YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Swell Pod.
This is interview 57 of the Kiln Road Trip, and today we're at Kiln Boulder in Colorado talking with Ryan Williams. Ryan is a community organizer for 1 Million Cups Boulder. 1 Million Cups Boulder is a pitch mentoring platform offering local entrepreneurs an opportunity to present their startups to a diverse audience of mentors, advisors, investors, and peers. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you enjoy.
So my name is Ryan Williams. I'm originally from San Diego. Moved out to Boulder 5 years ago now. I am a tech entrepreneur in the health and wellness space. So I like to dabble around with artificial intelligence, specifically with computer vision stuff. I had a previous startup that I started back in 2018, recently exited, and I'm in this entrepreneurial limbo, is what we call it. So I'm looking for the next thing. But ultimately, you know, I'm passionate about community organizing, and I volunteer for a few different organizations around town. One is called 1 Million Cups. It's put on by the Kauffman Foundation.
Yeah, I think I've heard of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weekly pitch mentoring platform.
Right.
Local entrepreneurs come in and they pitch their startup before they go and pitch a VC or a partner or a co-founder or whatever, and they just practice, and then we give them feedback on it. Right. And so we have over 1,800 members here in Boulder, and we typically get 20, 30 people to show up weekly, which is really great. This entrepreneurial community is just amazing. And then for Kiln, I also do some community organizing, an event called Coffee and Bagels. It's a monthly event, and we basically put about 20 chairs in a circle here, and people show up and introduce themselves. We pride ourselves on the Give First motto. So Boulder has a Give First motto, and that means really of just giving without expecting something in return. Yeah. And so we ask everybody, we introduce ourselves, what do you do? And then we have an offer ask. So what can we offer to a fellow Kiln member? And then, if there's something that you need, what can you ask a fellow Kiln member for help with? And then we dive into this member spotlight. So we have a member that we spotlight. And it's just good fun. So that's a bit about myself.
Where did that? We could go.
The passion for community.
Well, I want to go back to a moment like what the company was, but no, now we've got a passion for community. So where did that come from? And it sounds like you created that one that you just described is something you probably crafted and created.
There's also, what was it, 1 Million Cups?
Yeah.
So that's like a chapter thing, because I believe we've also had that in Provo. I think. Yeah, so I believe that we've done something similar.
It's a nationally wide organization.
Yeah.
There's over, I think, 120 different 1 Million Cups in different communities around the nation.
That's cool.
And so it's a good thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
And where did your love for community come from? Childhood, parents, grandparents, or just more recently?
I'm really big on purpose.
Yeah.
And making sure that you have a direction. And so something that has always resonated with me is building meaningful relationships that positively impact humanity. And when I was in high school, so just a quick, background on myself. I played football since 6 years old, all the way up into college. And I kind of was always, that team captain, team leader. But in high school specifically, I was a part of ASB, which is like Associated Student Body. And I was the student affairs. And I, at the time when I moved here, I was just rebranding myself, you know, like starting fresh. And I was like, well, what was it when I was a child that I could really like tap into that I remember that was a lot of fun? And student affairs was one of the things that was really fun. So I said, you know, with this purpose of building meaningful relationships, and I have some really great mentors. There's a renowned entrepreneur in town, Seth Levine and Brad Feld. They started Foundry Group, and Brad Feld had started Techstars, and they came up with this Give First motto, and I heard about it, and I was like, wow, that's something I really want to tap into. And so my mentors really continued to push me into that direction. And one day they said, hey, have you heard of 1 Million Cups? And I said, no. He said, you got to go check it out. So I did. And then long story short, I was offered to come on as an organizer. And then, but ultimately, you know, community organizing is just something that I think resonates with my, not only my purpose, but the Give First thing was really something that touched me and was like, okay, that's something worth it.
Yeah. As you're in this kind of, as you mentioned, this entrepreneurial limbo, it's interesting to think about it as well with your passion and kind of what you're doing right now, building community. I'm interested in kind of like, how closely are you paying attention to everything that's going on, and are you soaking it all in and kind of like using that as a lot of input into inspiration for whatever comes next as well?
100%.
Yeah.
You nailed it. And you hear so many different backgrounds and stories and ideas, and I think one of the most valuable things for me is learning. You get to learn from other people's mistakes, so to speak, you know. And I'm just surrounded by some really smart business people, some really good people, and I just continue to act like a sponge and soak it up, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What a cool place to be too, though. Like, so you work at a kiln, like you said, you host this coffee and bagels at Kiln, and you know, so what does Kiln play? Like, what's the role Kiln plays for you? Like, what does it mean to you?
Wow. Kiln has been my place of growth for sure. When I first started this coffee and bagels thing, I was so nervous. You know, it's like all these people looking at you when you talk. You just kind of have this idea, and I didn't know if people were going to like it or not like it, if they were going to show up or not show up. But Nina specifically just gave me an opportunity. She gave me a chance. She saw something.
That's cool.
And man, I just have really been able to treat this place as my home. I've met so many good friends now from here, relationships and business partners and girlfriends, you know, all in between. And it's quite the place, I'll tell you. And I've been to a few other kilns too. I'm from San Diego, so I went and checked out the ones in San Diego.
Yeah.
Man, it's just, this one here in Boulder is just holds a very special spot in my heart for sure. Yeah.
Interesting.
I wonder why that is, but I guess it's just sometimes we have to be in the right place at the right time with something that's been created by someone that cares about community.
I think it's Nina, really. Nina and Gretchen and Morgan. And these women just are incredible people. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate to be crossing paths with them for sure.
What brought you to Boulder? I'm sorry if I missed that.
No. So my dad was born in Pueblo. So I always had the itch to come to Colorado. And I was working for Tesla at the time in San Diego. And I just wanted something different. You know, there was something going on, and I was just like, you know, what if I moved? Nobody in my family had ever moved. And I was also the only one in my family to ever go to college either. So I've always kind of been that pioneer for my family. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. So I knew that this is all I knew. I knew that Colorado had the Olympic Training Center, which ends up being in Colorado Springs, not Boulder. And I'm huge into fitness, given my athletic background. And when I was at my time at Tesla, I was utterly obsessed with autopilot. And they taught me a bunch about it. I had this 8-week program that they sent me through. And that's really where my computer vision inspiration came from my first company. But yeah, so tech, fitness, elevation, and this entrepreneurial community. Brad Feld, again, released a book called Entrepreneurial Communities. I think that's what it was called. Anyways, yeah, so I read that book too, and that's where the Give First thing came through. And so it just kind of all fell into place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt in place, but it sounds like you're really good at reflecting, from things you enjoyed as a child, and then you've kind of taken that, and I'll take that, and I'll do something I've never done before, or the family have never done before, and then follow your intuition. So yeah, it's really inspiring.
It was a book, reading. One book definitely stands out to me that I read that helped me use my childhood to get forward. But yeah, it was just blind faith.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's good. Remember, we were at an event recently where Ryan Smith. Don't know if you know who Ryan Smith is, but he's a jazz owner, Utah Jazz. But he was interviewing Elder Bednar, who basically just emphasized that the key is to learn to love to learn. It's hard to remember that, but
tongue twister.
That's what you've basically learned to love to learn.
I'll actually add something on top of that. Yeah. I think my mentor pushes this really hard. It's curiosity.
Yeah.
Being curious, and that word means so much. Being curious in all aspects.
Yeah.
Probably defines where you're at right now too, right? Like just being super curious. Can you tell us about so just kind of give us a rundown of your previous company, and then kind of what are you seeing right now, and thinking about your next move? Is there anything that you're really deeply thinking about?
I have like
or curious
different
about?
ideas.
Yeah,
always. But yeah, so my first company was inspired by Tesla's autopilot. So when I was there, I was a salesperson. I got there in like 2017, maybe 2016. And their autopilot was in really like this private beta, and everyone was scared of this thing. Like nobody wanted to use it, and you had to be on a straightaway. You had to have solid lines next to you. You can only go a certain speed. But I was just all over it. I was like, I'll try it. I'll do the test drive. And I just couldn't believe that this car was driving me. And so basically damn near every car I sold, I'd say, you have to get this autopilot. You gotta get this. And so they came to me and they're like, hey, do you want to learn more about this stuff? I'm like, yeah, love it. So they taught me about AI and cameras and why Tesla's autopilot is so much more successful than everybody else's using the LiDAR and sensors, yada, yada, yada. And so I really got this deep understanding of machine learning and these applicable computer vision techniques that you can use in every day. And this is like way before, ChatGPT or anything was even out there. I mean, any of that stuff. So there was like a lot of restriction with like hardware, and there is still, some restriction there as far as running large, computational power on these devices. But ultimately I said, if this thing can drive a car, what could it do in fitness? And again, fitness is one of my passions. Weightlifting is one of my passions. I've been in the gym since I was probably 12 years old. And so I started to ideate there. And long story short, I came to this thought of, what if you could democratize a personal trainer? What if you can, have a personal trainer in your pocket? And so I started to look at the market and survey and talk to people and talk to teammates and coaches, and everybody gave me a pretty good response, but they're like, you're batshit crazy, What do you mean a computer can do that? And so, relatively to me leaving Tesla and me getting here, I actually met a fellow when I first moved here at jiu-jitsu who was building something similar, but with devices. And I didn't like that because you would have to wear like 6 different devices to track your whole body.
Yeah.
That wasn't practical to me. And then we started to ideate, tapping into the wearable market. I mean, Whoop was pretty new at the time, and Apple Watch had been there. And again, it just wasn't something that I saw. And I was like, there's got to be a way that you can just use your phone, And so I went out and I started talking to so many different programmers and just, again, using my batshit craziness. And I got to the point where we were actually able to track yourself using the front-facing camera on your mobile phone. And that's a whole nother debacle that we can talk about, how to get that going. You know, it's partly running in the cloud, partly running on device, and yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, I started this company, and I started to grow and grow and grow. And, you know, long story short, we basically got to a point where I stepped back, and you know, the company, I brought on some people. The company's going in a new direction, a different direction. I sold majority of my shares, and you know, I'm still advising them, but it's just something that just turned into, I would say, really something that was another growing platform for myself, where I could really just take what I did, you know, at Tesla and my background, and apply it to something, learn so much about business. I mean, I can't even tell you specifically about, you know, product development. But I naturally am a salesperson, so that always has come easy to me. And so I also advise another health and wellness company here in Boulder, and they work with universities, and they use AI, generative AI, and it's basically like a chatbot, and it has contextual understanding of the universities and all their offerings and their services. And whenever, you know, the problem there is they're extremely underutilized, but they spend a lot of money. The university spent a lot of money there. And so we were thinking of how can we like point the students in the right direction. And so long story short, that's essentially what we're building. It's a health and wellness platform that offers fitness and mindfulness, some life advice, community, but ultimately it just points people in the right direction, utilizing the university's offerings. And so that's I advise them with business and product development stuff. But yeah, man, that's just kind of
great.
What I'm doing career-wise. And
incredible.
I don't know the next thing, you know. I got
You're just being curious.
Yeah,
right?
being curious.
Being curious.
Yeah,
Cheers.
you can see how it's all stacked up, and all those things have given you a huge amount of experience that you can draw on now. So yeah, thank you.
Before we get into the rest of the episode, we want to thank the partners and sponsors who made the Kiln Road Trip possible. The Kiln Road Trip is brought to you by Kiln. Kiln is a boutique co-working and flex office community with 13 locations in 6 states across the West, dedicated to providing innovative workspaces that empower your team to thrive. Whether you're a solo visionary or an enterprise-level team of up to 100, Kiln transcends being merely a place to work. It's a hub for learning and connecting with like-minded professionals that will make you and your team love where you work.
And if you haven't stepped foot inside a kiln yet, you really need to. On this road trip, we visited every single location, and trust us when we say once you see these beautifully designed spaces, meet the talented team, and connect with fellow members, you won't want to work anywhere else.
Locations include Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, California, and Arizona. And they're growing too, with multiple locations set to open in 2024.
Yeah, so be sure to check out the kiln locations nearest you by booking a tour at kiln.com and answer Swell in the question, how did you hear about us? Once you complete the tour, you'll be entered into a competition where you could win a 1-year membership, their club membership at Kiln.
Yep, you heard that. That's kiln.com, book a tour, and be sure to mention Swell in the question, how did you hear about us?
The Kiln Road Trip is also brought to you by Moterra Camper Vans, a luxury camper van rental company for iconic road trips. Their top-of-the-line vans are available at 7 locations located near America's best outdoor adventure destinations. They have consistently earned the highest customer ratings in the industry, making Moterra camper vans your gateway to adventure without sacrificing on comfort or service.
That's true, and initially we wanted to take this journey in a 1960s VW bus, but thankfully we found Moterra instead. With 3 van options, we took the Pop Top Classic, which sleeps 4 and is best for those who want to maximize floor space and storage. This was critical for us because it needed to sleep the entire crew, we needed space to edit, and we were traveling with large amounts of equipment, luggage, and, other goodies that we picked up along the way.
And this van took us through all 3,580 miles of the trip. Super comfortable and sweet to drive.
And actually, Moterra offers fully planned itineraries if you'd rather leave the planning to someone else.
Visit gomoterra.com/swell. That's gomoterra.com/swell.
This episode is also brought to you by Taurus. Taurus is leading the charge in home energy storage. Taurus makes it easy to achieve energy independence and a greener tomorrow. The Taurus station provides everything you need to generate clean power, efficiently store electricity, and easily manage your energy use.
And installing a Taurus station offers plenty of benefits, including save money on your electricity bill,
Also, ensure energy security with backup power during outages.
reduce carbon emissions with renewables,
You can also automate EV charging and HVAC systems with 100% renewables.
and enjoy unrivaled system monitoring and support.
If you like the sound of those benefits, get a quote to build your Taurus station in less than 30 seconds. Super easy at taurus.co. That's TORUS.co. Now, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, so the last question that we ask everybody that comes on this podcast is, about the idea of creating a movement. And what do you think it takes to take an idea, something that's never existed before, and create something new that might create that movement or challenge the status quo?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
A lot comes to my mind, but one of the biggest things is belief, this blind faith. If you have an idea and you think it truly can help people and it solves a problem, and people want to solve that problem with tech,
Yeah.
you can do anything that you want. I mean, Steve Jobs has that quote, the people who think that they can change the world do.
Mm-hmm.
That's paraphrased, but
Yeah.
So I think it's just this relentless blind faith of believing not only in yourself, but in your idea, the people around you, and just being humble enough to, but also keeping a good, keen head on your shoulders, not to get distracted. There's always the brighter star that you see. As you're going, that's kind of the analogy I use. You're out in the outer space and you see this really bright star, so you head towards that star, and then you look over, there's another really bright star, then there's another one. If you could just stay focused on that bright star and get there, the world's your oyster.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Kiln Road Trip. Be sure to follow along on the rest of the journey, and you can do that in two ways. One, subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or maybe even watching on YouTube, and follow along on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok, at the Swell Pod. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.